The end of February of 2026 is about to be huge. It is the completion of the Saturn Neptune cycle. Okay, this is massive. So I want to go through three specific charts, three specific dates for the end of February, which, as you can see, I have three tabs open on this screen. We have February 17th, February 20th, and March 3rd. Okay, so this is going into the early part of March. Essentially, we're looking at the first half of the lunar cycle that begins with the new moon in Aquarius here, which will start on February 20th. All right. A new moon in Aquarius is all about a new moon at the edge of your seat. Okay. This happens deep in the last few days of Aquarius season. So we are beginning something. We are beginning something in a community, within an idea, with something online. We're beginning something within our logical brains, some algorithm, some idea, and check where this is happening in your own chart to get a closer sense. But we're starting something somewhat radical at this new moon in Aquarius, and it will pop off. And I'll tell you that it's going to pop off because the Saturn Neptune conjunction will happen days after this new moon perfects. And not only that, but the full moon that happens in this new moon cycle is a lunar eclipse. All right. So if we look pretty closely here, this is a new moon that is within 10 degrees of the lunar north node, which some might read as an eclipse. I am partially reading this as an eclipse. I don't feel it is overtly eclipsy. However, because we have this Saturn Neptune conjunction happening imminently at this new moon cycle, in this new moon cycle, we are going to be feeling something very, very incredibly deep. Okay. Other important thing to note at this new moon is that Mars, which by the way is the ruler of Aries, which is where this Neptune Saturn conjunction is happening at the very beginning of Aries. Mars is really pretty close, also within 10 degrees of the new moon, and that feels honestly way more relevant to me than the 10-degree nodal conjunction, although you could argue they're all kind of within this larger conjunction to each other. However you want to interpret that, we have a ton of focus and energy up here, which is in that Aquarius Pisces realm. These are interpersonal cosmic realms, okay? Aquarius is the individuated unconscious. So it's our personal connection to infinity and all the various selves we could be. Whereas Pisces is the collective unconscious. Pisces is where everything bleeds into one, okay? And with the North Node and Venus and Mercury being there, we have and have for a while had a direction into the infinite, into collapsing all the boundaries and borders around us so that we can fully embody our spiritual presence, our spiritual knowing. And that whole chapter will have recently come to an end as Saturn will have just stepped out of Pisces, ending its time in Pisces for good, mere days before this new moon perfects. It will be on February 14th or 13th that Saturn leaves the sign of Pisces for good. And again, imminently will join Neptune in the sky and start a new relationship. Okay, so this also begins the Saturn in Aries Saturn return for all of us who have Saturn in Aries. Okay, so get excited for that. It's pretty remarkable, this cycle, and that's why I wanted to sit down and like share all my thoughts about it. And I hope it helps you because this Saturn cycle not only starts in a new phase conjunction to Neptune, which is the truth. It is the ultimate unknowable truth that in the sign of Aries must go through you. It must go through your individual sense of self. It must go through your actions. You have to embody limitless truth in yourself. That is not work that we are used to doing over the last 8 years, as Neptune was in the sign of Pisces, and we were kind of resting in the infinite consciousness for better, for worse. And when Neptune has already, stepped into Aries by this point, Saturn makes a conjunction to Neptune. What happens is we take responsibility for the truth that's inside of us at this point, okay? And this being that it is a little bit of an eclipsey season, and this is really these three signs, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, this is the, as I said, individuated unconscious, collective unconscious, and this is the consciousness. Aries is where things come to consciousness, okay? So we have all these planets that have been brewing and stewing in the individuated unconsciousness, in the collective unconsciousness, and it is in February, at the end of February, where all this stuff restarts, okay? Sun, Moon, Mars, Venus, Mercury, all of this here, they move pretty quickly, okay? We're going to get this once a year through Aquarius and through Pisces, but what we do not get very often is a Saturn Neptune conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries, at the very first degree of the very first sign of the zodiac, okay? So if you've been waiting to restart something in your life, the end of February is the time to do it. Specifically, we can look to February 20th. Here we have a waxing moon in the sign of Aries nonetheless, everybody. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction happens while the moon itself is going to be in Aries. And so we will be feeling emotionally coherent to the new beginning that we are literally holding in our very action, in our every breath. Aries is the last thing but static. It is the most dynamic in and out breath, every motion, every movement that you can take. And at this point, it is aligned. It is aligned with the rebuilding of structural reality, which is Saturn, in accordance, in coherence with your personal truth, okay? And moving back to that Mars ruling the Saturn and Neptune conjunction, Mars is in Aquarius right now. Moving on into a square to Uranus, which I'm not going to talk too much about because that's not tight enough for me yet, but it carries that little bit of oomph of just like Mars in Aquarius wants to really be moving boldly in new areas of life, in the edge of what is known to you. So that this isn't just you impulsively taking action on something. This is like Mars in Aquarius is you've been standing at that edge for a while. And this Mars in Aquarius has pretty much already jumped off the edge. And that's going to be that feeling that we get throughout this cycle, throughout these next few days. When I look at that full moon in a moment here, we're going to see this Mars only gets tighter and tighter to the square to Uranus as the moon itself grows, okay? We have Venus that has just passed over the North Node in Aries. Mercury is in its retrograde shadow. I believe to be true. That's fine. I'm fine with that. But my point here is that do you feel what I'm saying here? This is actually amazing, and it's incredibly exciting for me. I mean, I think, yeah, I won't get too far ahead of myself here, but this is pretty remarkable, the fact that the moon itself will be in Aries on the day, February 20th, that Saturn passes Neptune in Aries, making a new phase conjunction. Saturn, again, being our structural truth, our structural reality in the sign of Aries. This is a 3-year period that has just begun, where we are taking responsibility for our every single action, okay? And it is beginning its cycle, its own cycle in Aries conjunct Neptune, which means this is not just any old structural reality that we are building based of our personal impulses. This is a structural reality that is coherent to our individual exploration of what higher truth is to each of us, okay? Motivated by the ruler, Uranus, Uranus ruled Mars in Aquarius, okay? Again, taking action at the edge of known reality. This is no small stakes here, okay? It's not a reason to like go crazy, but it is very, very exciting. All this North Node energy in Pisces, which is, by the way, ruled by this Neptune now in Aries in this new phase. Whereas before February 20th, we were finishing an old cycle of how we made our dreams, Neptune, reality, Saturn. On February 20th, we begin to build again. We begin to explore the possibilities of building a new reality again. Okay, again, motivated by this edge of our known reality in our mind. Okay, Given that this also just came out of a new moon in the sign of Aquarius, think of Pluto in Aquarius. Think of the new paradigm of life that we're all stepping into, the new definition of what a human is based on what technology is doing, based on where our own minds are going, okay? The individuality, the individual humanity of each and every one of us. That is the focus moving forward. Our impulsivity, the truth of impulsivity. The impulsivity is not a bad thing, okay? I hear all these astrologers talking about how bad Aries is in, sorry, how bad Saturn is in the sign of Aries. And like, what BS, okay? We're so beyond holding on to outdated, old. It doesn't mean they're wrong, okay? You can believe that's right, and that'll float your boat. Happy for you, okay? But we create the truths for ourselves. And that's going to be more clear than ever with this Saturn and Neptune conjunction, okay? That's how I read it. You can read it however you desire. All right? Now, let's look at what happens a few days later into this cycle, which, as I mentioned, is the lunar eclipse in Virgo. Okay? Here we see Saturn, Neptune in their new phase, Venus getting closer, but a full moon eclipse in the sign of Virgo. This eclipse season, this nodal transit of the South Node in Virgo and the North Node in Pisces has been so dramatic. Okay, we've had everything possible exaggerated and limited at the same time because we've had Saturn and Neptune when they were in Pisces over the last few years with the North Node, which means our direction was to be going straight into the thing that was both going to limit us and prove to us that the truth is limitless. Okay? It's very confusing. This has been a deeply strange last 18, 19 months, and even a little less than that, okay? Because the nodes will switch signs in the summer of 2026. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but this Pisces business, the Pisces business, Sun in Pisces, Mars now in Pisces, now ruling the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, Mercury retrograde in Pisces, ruling the full moon eclipse in Virgo itself. This has been such a dramatic, that's where I was trying to go, nodal cycle, and that full and new moon, those solar and lunar eclipses that we have been having, reorienting us to, a spiritual practice, a sense of devotion that we abandoned with that South Node that we needed to pick back up in order to move forward and really take responsibility for the limitlessness that's within us, okay? Call it your soul, call it emptiness, I don't care. Emptiness seems to be the truest way that I've connected to it. But what I can tell you, and what I think about a lot myself as an Aries Saturn, is how important it is to move your body and be in control of your physical body, and not from a overly managed place, but the connection between you feeling like you have a purpose is directly connected to your breath, directly connected to your body. And that's going to be true for everyone while Saturn is in the sign of Aries, transiting through the sign of Aries over these next 3 years. Okay? Mercury being retrograde as the ruler of this full moon in Virgo also says that this is an old story that we are wrapping up with this full moon lunar eclipse, okay? It is big. It is throbbing, okay? Check where 12 degrees of Virgo is in your chart to really get a grip on what it is, this old practice in your life that you have been like digging out of the trenches, okay? Because there's a lot of inspiration behind it. But at this stage with Mercury retrograde in Pisces, the inspiration, the leading edge of that inspiration is going to be something that you already talked about in the past. That's a Mercury retrograde in Pisces. And it's not going to be something Virgoan. Like, it's going to be something more Piscean. It's going to be broad. It's going to be idealistic. It might even be dreamy. Okay. And a lunar eclipse does show fulfillment. It shows a big culmination. It doesn't necessarily mean an ending to me, but it means there's a lot of clarity. And keep in mind, this is new phase to the south node and the north node, which means this is a new reflection of these nodes of fate. We've been having a lot of the north and south node conjunctions have been in a balsamic phase to either nodes, which means we were still completing old stories when it comes to fate. But now that that this lunation is happening, new phase to the north and south node, which means we are basically in a new chapter of our fate when it comes to this area. I'm sorry, Pisces, Virgo business situation here. Okay, I mean we still have a few more months at this point of the Virgo Pisces axis, but what is brand new at this full moon, which we did not have in the new and full moons and the eclipses in this axis in the past, is that the Saturn Neptune conjunction is now in its new phase. Okay. We are owning our truth in a way that we likely have not in the last like 30 plus years. Okay. That's big. And it's the first time Pluto's been in Aquarius. This Saturn Neptune conjunction is also in a bit of a sextile to Pluto in Aquarius. Again, going down that theme of the edge of the known, that's Aquarius. And the edge of the known being the edge of your own mind, okay? So I don't want to go around and say don't trust your mind, but I want to say don't trust the part of your mind that's trying to drag you down. Build out your dream. Choose it. And if that dream is just in this present moment, I dream to feel much stronger than I'm feeling right now. Literally go do some HIIT workouts. It's free on YouTube. Go do some brain training. Okay, find out where this 1-2 degrees is in your chart. Correlate that into your life and just do it. Don't think about it. Aries is not about thinking. There really isn't too much going on here about thinking. Jupiter is still in Cancer. This is about feeling. This is about being intelligent with your emotions and your feelings and seeing the wisdom. Uranus and Taurus is definitely not about intellect. Uranus and Taurus is about this, your sensory body. Again, intelligence of your emotions, okay? It's now that, and especially at this full moon, we don't have much. I mean, yeah, Pluto's left in Aquarius, okay? We go back to the Saturn Neptune conjunction and even the new moon in Aquarius. This can be a little heady for sure, right? But it's all pretty far from Pluto. So we are starting something new when it comes to probably a community that we have been part of before with that 28 degrees of Aquarius. Venus also on the north node at this new moon, February 17th, really nice. Whatever direction you are feeling pulled in is really nice. And it's this, a balsamic phase conjunction, which is what's going to still be happening between Saturn and Neptune at this new moon in Aquarius. That balsamic phase conjunction is very similar to the sign of Pisces itself, because this is about the ending. This is about the ending of a major cycle and the disillusion and the letting go, right? But because we are mere days at this Aquarius new moon, we are mere days away from the conjunction. We're going to be feeling potentially darker than ever, potentially more motivated than ever in a way that we don't understand why, but led into something that feels very aligned, feels like we are open to it. That's all Venus is like where we are actually open to something, where we can take something in, where we can extend our hand in a way that will be received as well by someone else. That's all Venus is. Okay? So my whole point, I think, with this end of February 2026 into March, into that full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. Wow. We have this last moment with that new moon of the intellect. And that whole Aquarius season will also be somewhat intellectual. It will be about thinking. It will be about moving our minds and being with people and discussing things and really allowing ourselves to have that sun embody the creative edge of our own mind. Okay, again, Aquarius is that edge of our own mind. Mars is going through there. But let's remember that at the beginning of January 2025 and at the end of January 2025, beginning, end of January 2026, we're having many conjunctions to Pluto and Aquarius, which means that by the time February begins, we have a renewed relationship to the destruction of our own minds, okay? And I'll go more into that for the full moon that happens at that month earlier in February, but there's just so many cycles that seem to kind of self-implode on each other and then restart again. And by the time we are at that end of February 2026 into March, and it really is peaking and fulfilling itself at that full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo, one of the final lunations we're going to have like very close on this axis, rounding out really the last year of what has gone on in our lives when it comes to the Virgo area of our chart and the Pisces area of our chart. It's very important if you want to really get a grip on this to figure out where this is all happening in your chart and understand that you're not letting go of Virgo. You're not supposed to go more into Pisces. It's just that you needed the backing of Virgo far more deeply than you realized. So you needed to trudge out the past, put your hands back in and say, okay, I need to devote myself this way. I need to do it. And that's what the full moon's going to show. And then the Pisces North Node just said, all it says is stay open. All it says is stay open. There's really nothing else there. And so when Neptune and Saturn make their new phase conjunction to each other in the middle of this lunar cycle at the end of February, wow. It's almost as though our every action that we are doing is literally building out our reality. And you could argue that's always been true, that everything we are doing is contributing to the larger castle that we are building, even if it's a sand castle. I don't care. You understand what I'm trying to get here. My point is more so that when we have this conjunction happen in Aries, it's not spiritual, etheric, or theoretical anymore. It's literal. We become the living truth, the living symbol for ourselves while Neptune is in Aries and while Saturn is in a new phase to Neptune for the next 3 years. Okay? We are the ones responsible for our own truth. And this kicks off in a huge way at the end of February 2026. I'm hammering this because I'm very excited about it. And I want you to be too. So let me know what you think. Definitely get a reading with me if you want to go over where this is showing up in your birth chart. Because as I said, that Aries house is very important. And what I love to do in readings and what I do for myself is I'm ruthless. I'm ruthless with my own mind. I'm ruthless with you. Like, I will only hold you to yourself. And so it's not even about you being honest or authentic. It is about you answering your own questions well. Because as I'm saying, when we get to that February 20th date, and even when we have Saturn and Neptune and Aries both, even when they are both in a balsamic conjunction to each other, finishing out that last cycle, think about the authority, the self-authority we have in completing this last cycle. We are not, we are not beholden to it, okay? It's living through us. We need to trust our impulses, let go of any sense of morality when it comes to, oh, it should have happened this way. It should have happened that way. I'm so happy about this, or I'm so devastated about this. Wonderful. Feel your feelings. Trust me, you must feel your feelings, but you also must take physical responsibility for them, which either means working out, like literally working them through your body, making art, uh, like talking about it. Use your Mars. Mars becomes so, so important in 2026. So use your Mars. And if you're confused like me because your Mars is in Gemini, and you're trying to not intellectualize things, okay? Just speak. Just speak your words and don't care what other people think of you either. Okay? Well, thanks for listening. Let me know what you think. Do get a reading with me. Thanks for watching and bye.